is sitting alone in your room. Come hear the music play. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret. Put down the knitting, that book, your broom. Time for a holiday. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret and taste the wine. Hear the band. Come blow your horn. Start celebrating this way. No use permitting some prophet outdo. Wipe every smile away. Life is a cabaret, old chum. Come to the cabaret and taste the wine. Hear the band. Come blow your horn. Stop celebrating right this way. Your table's waiting. Start by admitting from table to. Isn't that longest day? Life is a cabaret, old chum. Only a cabaret, old chum. So come to the cabaret.
Okay, everybody, nearly ready to begin. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Let's get the show on the road. Welcome to Whining On. My name is Matthew Bowden, the Incorrigible Rogue, and today I am very pleased to have with me Chris Lynam. Chris, how you doing, buddy? Oh, I've muted you. Sorry, my apologies. There we go. You're in the room, buddy.
Okay. Oh, thanks for having me on. Thanks. Yeah.
Hey, my pleasure. So one quick thing to say to everybody just before we begin. Everyone who's watching, if you haven't yet, please like, share, subscribe. If you're on the YouTube channel, click the bell and subscribe. If you're on Facebook, join the Whining On with Public Performers Facebook group or the Incorrigible Rogue fan page. Now we've done all that, I think we can begin. Chris, of the people who've worked in the street, I think you're one of the guys who's been working for the longest, since the early 70s. Am I correct in that?
73, yeah. So can you tell how many people are watching, Matt?
You can. We've got about 10 people watching at this moment on the Facebook feed. Yes.
Okay.
We get a couple hundred people watching through the week who watch after the show. We don't get all the people watching live, but tend to get a lot of the oldies, kind of people you've probably worked with for years will be here live watching and possibly commenting. Please comment. Let us know if you're here, everybody. So, Chris, why begin this life? Did you have an artistic family? Did you have parents that pushed you into the arts?
No, Matt. I woke up one morning and said, I want to be a clown.
Why?
Don't know. It must have been a lot of things leading up to that, childhood, in trouble always. I think probably, and always getting involved in drama and singing at school and sport, studying stuff. And then I started smoking quite early as well. And partying pills and all that kind of thing from a very early age. And so I was kind of rebel and a hippie, that, the 60s. So I guess that was kind of the influence, just having fun, and anti-establishment kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of my childhood was born and bred in Zimbabwe, was Rhodesia then. And then I left home and school at 15 and traveled around Southern Africa for a couple of years. And
was it a happy childhood?
I have very strict parents and I got beaten a lot. I think I probably still hold the record at school for thrashings from headmaster, deputy headmaster, all the teachers and prefect were allowed to beat us as well. So, it was 3 or 4 times a week I'd be beaten by somebody and fighting. And so, it was like, and then when I was 14, it was the second year in the school holidays, I went to Luna Park, which was a kind of fun fair thing that they had. And the first year I sold Coca-Colas with this guy he had the best weed I ever smoked from Malawi. It was just unbelievable. And then the second year, when I came to ask for the job, I happened to be in the right time and place for a couple of RAF guys in their month's holiday. They did a fakir act.
What's a fakir act?
Fakir, sticking nails up, Indian Raja, that kind of stuff. Swallowing swords, climbing up razor blade ladders, and
what we'd see is kind of
nails.
Traditional freak show stuff, but in a kind of paradigm of being a kind of Indian mystic, kind of sadhu kind of character.
Cool. I think a lot of these things actually originated, the nails up your nose is because it's a yogic thing of cleaning your nose, and swords down your throat. I think that might be trying to catch a frog that got lost or something. I don't know. And so these guys wanted somebody to do the afternoon shows, and I was there when they were saying, can we do that? We need someone. I said, bang, hello. And so they took me on and taught me that stuff. Sword swallowing, never really good. It takes a long time to learn to stop gagging, but all the rest of it. And then I didn't do anything like that so that was 14, until I was 20 when I decided you're going to missing something.
Just before we go on to that, when you first did this stuff with the fakir guys, how was it? How did it feel?
Just everything feels like, okay, that's today. My whole life felt like that. Oh, what's that? Oh, look at that. It's a bit like Malcolm Hardy's expression is what I feel like. Oh, look at that. It's just constantly life throwing these tasty little morsels your way.
So it wasn't a thing of being at that point of thinking, oh, this is me, performance. No. I love this.
No. Okay. No, I mean, I'd always had, exhibitionist. In fact, I'm just about to get some films back that my dad took of us when we were kids. And there's one in particular I'm looking forward to because I used to dress up with my brother and sister. We go, hey, let's make this thing. So I'm dying to see what that looks like. Yeah. I might share that on this medium.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. And so you said the next time you looked into performing was 20 years old. So in between this, were you just traveling about, having a good time, seeing what life had to offer?
Being a hippie. I came to England when I was 17 on a boat. And it was kind of a get out of town quickly kind of thing. Because I'd gone back to Harare, Salisbury it was then. And you couldn't get work in those days if you had long hair, except on the railways. And so I'd got this, I'd managed to blag this job by getting a short wig and putting it on. And I got this job as an electricity meter reader. And which I thought, oh, this is a great job. Look, you get given a scooter and 2 weeks training, and then you go all around the countryside and knock on the people's doors to read their electrics meter. And, you know, obviously in those days, it was mostly the wives that were at home. So that was their idea. It was like, oh.
There was a film at that time, wasn't there? A Day in the Life of a Taxi Driver or something like this. Was this the kind of idea?
Oh, really? Well, this was like 1971. So
okay. In that film, he goes around, he's a milkman and he shags all the wives. It's just
really?
the reason I mentioned it, yeah. The Day in the Life of, very saucy.
Oh.
So you're doing this, and do you manage to achieve your goal? Is it what you dreamed it to be?
No, dude, on the second day, because it was summer in Africa in November, beginning of November. And so I had this wig I had quite long hair then. And so I'd have it all pinned up and under this wig for like 8 hours in a classroom doing all this. And then you have to read, okay, can you count to 10 or so? I don't know. I can't remember what they taught us. But I mean, it's not rocket science reading bloody electric meters, is it?
No.
And so after the first day, I came out, ripped the hair wig off and scratching my hair all like that's itching. Went back in on the second day. On the way home on the second day, I lost the wig. And so you couldn't find another one easily. So I went in on the third day and the guy just freaked out. He couldn't believe he'd been duped. Go out and get a haircut or don't come back. So I just went straight to Thomas Cook and booked, what's the soonest, cheapest you've got going to Europe? Because I'd also had come and join the army messages coming through. So because there was a kind of war going on. There was a kind of war. Yeah, was it UDI, Unilateral Declaration of Independence? So they were going, oh, we're not connected to England. No, we're running it ourselves. And and so there was that. And anyway, I had Thomas.
And I take it as a young hippie, you wanted nothing to do with the war.
No. So I had the ticket I bought cost like 300 quid, and it was by boat from Cape Town, which is 2,000 miles away. And I had 4 days to get there. So I spent 2 days packing up and selling everything, getting the whatever pennies I could, and hitchhiked down to Cape Town, which 2 lifts, 32 hours, unbelievable journey. And then leaving Cape Town with the sun going down and the moon coming up as going out of Table Bay with the Table Mountain in the background. Oh my God, just never forget a picture like that. I wish I had a photo of that.
What was it like when you first arrived to Britain? Was it what you expected?
No, it was really shit. But it was winter, and I'd never had winter like that. I mean, it got down to 0 there, but this is like grey. I think the boat landed at like 6:30 in the morning, and it took until like 8:30 to get through customs and all that. It was at Southampton. And then I didn't know where I was going, so I just started hitchhiking. Got a lift at about 9 o'clock to Portsmouth, which is not very far. And then I stood there and watched the sun come up, and I went like up like that, and then started going down, and I was still there around 3 o'clock, and it was drizzly, and I can't flip in heck. And then
about people like, did you notice the people being similar to what you'd known from where you grew up?
Dude, I was on the side of a road. Don't notice anything. Just cars going by. The cars looked the same. Yeah, there was kind of, yeah, it was the same. But, you know, grey and misty and cold and no sun, you know, no blue skies, grey. And then someone stopped about 3:30 or 4, I don't know, and said, where are you going? I said, I don't know, where are you going? Bonn in Germany. I went, cool, I'm going there. And I thought, okay, I knew someone in Switzerland, so I went to Switzerland for the winter and then came back to the UK in, I don't know, February, March or something.
And how did you sustain yourself? Were you just kind of on the hippie trail, finding what you could find to survive?
Yeah.
Any performance weaving its way into it?
Well, I'd sold my guitar in Africa to go away, and where these guys dropped me off, because it's a long trip, so we were chatting away in the car. I said, oh, I've got to have a guitar again. So they said, oh, come coming to Bond, we know a really good guitar shop. So I went in there and bought a guitar and carried on my way. So I had a guitar, and then I did bits of kind of busking, but you know, it's a bit shit. You know, Bob Dylan songs and that kind of thing. Wasn't very creative.
Yeah, but it's a beginning. Same as everybody, I think, starts a little bit like that.
Yeah, and then for 17, so 18, 19, 20, 3 years I spent in London. Arriving in London was just phenomenal. I was hitching here from Amsterdam, and this guy picked me up, and he had been to Utrecht, so I must have been a bit far. I must have got some lift or something. And he was Irish, and he'd just bought his first VW Combi, Volkswagen, you know, those van.
Like the classic camper, yeah.
Yeah, but it wasn't a camper; it was just a van, and he was taking it back to England to go and do it up as a camper to sell to Australians coming over. And this was his little business thing. So he said to me, "Oh, great, where you go?" He was Irish, Aidan, yeah. And where you going? So I said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "Whoa, do you want a house?" I said, "Sure." And he drove me to this squatting community in Somerstown, in Camden, and there was 90 houses, and they were about all squatted, except for about 6 or 7 were empty still. So I just boom, have a house, and you know, we'll help you change the locks, and and no, I think I stayed there for 2 years or something.
How did this happen? I mean, we know from the last interview that I've done a bit of this myself, but I'm going to play ignorant to this just to extract as much information as possible.
So
how did this happen? It sounds incredible. There'd be an entire housing estate of people just moving into houses.
I know. One of the houses was like a community centre. You know, we had sofas and everything. People could go and hang out, and we fed like 80 or 90 people.
Wow. Every
day for 5p. And me and Andy, this mate, he was in the next door house, and he'd help me change the locks and everything, and you know, get water and electrics on.
Did the police not give you hassle?
No, squatting was legal then. Yeah, it was kind of grey area. You weren't allowed to actually break in, which we did, but you know, once you were in, you were allowed to be there. And if the owners were Camden Council, and the houses were all derelict. So
was the council sympathetic? Did they kind of allow it, or were they? Yeah. They did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of not allow it, but when they had a use for the houses, then they'd give you eviction notices or take you to court or whatever. So
which is reasonable.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not using
it was really civilized way of living. My first 15 years in London, I never paid a cent for rent. Nothing.
Wow. And you said you fed. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, we fed 90 people. No,
you fed
25, about 25 or 30 people. Yeah.
You said you fed all these people for 5p a day. I mean, that seems incredible.
And that was, the money was spent on buying rice and basic stuff, oil and that. And me and Andy used to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, well, 4 mornings a week or so, I don't know, pretty regularly, and cycle into Covent Garden. And Covent Garden was a fruit and veg market then. And they used to close up at around 6 o'clock. That's when they used to pack up and go home, because it used to open, I don't know, 2 or 3. And all that piazza and all the side streets and everything were just full of trucks and barrows and people trading fruit and veg. And we used to go and pick up the thrown away stuff and take it back. And that's what we cook up for the evening meal for people.
And there was no shows there. There was no performance.
No. I was the first person to go and play there. And that must have been in mid or late 70s.
Well, we'll touch on that later on then, and we'll get more stuff from there. But at this time, what was it? A ring road around there, so you didn't have the cobbles weren't paved. You didn't have the square set out on the West Piazza like it is now.
No, and all those trendy shops that are there now, those were more like stalls and fruit and veg things. I mean, to tell you the truth, I didn't take much notice of them because we used to just go and hunt around the streets and see. And they used to throw away boxes of really good stuff. I mean, you couldn't take all of it because, you know, you just take what you need. Oh, let's have some asparagus today, or, you know.
Yeah. It's amazing. And so what was the culture of people like there at the time? Did you manage to absorb a bit of it?
No, it was Londoners though.
Okay, so it's like the Cockneys.
Yeah.
You typical Cockney. All right, governor.
Yeah,
Get the
yeah.
barra.
And barking and all that kind of stuff. But you know, by the time we got there, it was all kind of closing down. So there'd be one or two people still barking. But I wish I'd gone early on, you know, and seen what it was like at 2 or 3 in the morning, because obviously I think the nearest accommodation was the Peabody Estates, which are, the sound wouldn't have travelled that far of people shouting and screaming, buy my sausage rolls or eggs or whatever they had.
And I think it becomes a thing. Like I used to live behind a train track, and you stop hearing the trains after a while. You just don't realise they're even there. It's probably the same thing with the barking. It becomes part of the texture of the area.
Yeah.
So, were you performing in this big residential estate that you were living in? That this guy had come and you'd opened a house and you were going and skipping food together.
Yeah. Actually, I went back with him to Utrecht a couple of times. He used to go to the auctions there. I think I might have done about 4 or 5 trips, because the second time he said, well, he did this van up quite quickly, sold it. Come on, let's go get another one. Do you want to get 2? I'm going to get 2. So we went and drive, and then we did the same. When it got to buying 4 vans, he'd like pick up hitchhikers. Hey, do you want to drive this back to London? You know, it was a great little business thing he had.
It sounds really fun. Did you guys do performance and culture in the community centre there? Was there so people were just living their lives, and the community centre was for people to touch base, but there wasn't a performing culture so much?
No, I think there was one guy, also next door neighbour on the other side, Lenny Kovner, and I think that might have been my first kind of brush with clowning, because he worked with a company called Friends Roadshow, and he was just studying, and Friends Roadshow was one of the very early groups in 73 or 4, I think they started. And that was Django Edwards led thing. But they had English friends and Amsterdam friends. And there was probably, the English friends was about 20, 25 people, and the same with the Amsterdam ones.
So it's very much a group of people working creatively together.
Yeah. So, and then I started hanging out with Lenny because then I just woke up in that bed one morning and said, bang, clown, okay, let's go. And started going to the Oval House, actually, for tumbling workshops. And a guy called Johnny Melville, he was doing clown workshops. So I did about a year with him. And
How did you afford going to study?
Oh, it was really cheap, or free or something, I don't know. Yeah, it was cheap. It was like £1 or something.
And
the Oval House was a phenomenal centre for the arts in those days. It was really proactive and really what's that word? Supportive of anything that you wanted to do. Yeah, there was the fringe companies that were in existence already, like Incubus and what was that other one called? There was a lot of fringe companies.
Covent Garden Theatre Company as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. And they kind of were Arts Council funded. So, yeah, it was quite a thriving bit of business, but clowns didn't really happen in the UK. So it was quite surprising that Johnny Melville was doing these workshops. And
how did you feel about that at the time? What are you thinking about the world, and why you're doing these things, and what's your part in all of this at that time?
No, I'm not that analytical, dude. I'm just kind of wake up in the morning, what's next kind of person. Yeah, I don't really plan much.
So you must have enjoyed it. There must have been something that drew you to it.
Dude, I've had the best life ever, you know, especially those early years, 15 years of playing the streets was the happiest and wealthiest time of my life. You know, I traveled the world because right around that time, travel, you know, I used to hitchhike or get a train or bicycles or whatever. Didn't have a car for ages, 10 or 15 years, but yeah, probably 10 years before I got a car. And but there were some courier companies that used to, the very early days of it, you could phone up and tell them, okay, I want to go to New York, or I want to go to Tokyo or something. And they'd say, okay, and you'd book a date for 3 or 4 months in advance, and it would be free. And all you couldn't take any luggage, but you just had to take this sheaf of documents in in plastic, and somebody would give you those documents just before you checked in. Give you the documents, you'd meet them. They'll give you the documents, they'll check you in, and then when you got to the other side of wherever, there's someone there to take the documents off you, and they just used your luggage space to carry whatever shit they and I think they carried a lot of stuff. They paid the excess baggage or whatever. And but I used to phone up and say, "Have you got any cancellations today or tomorrow or whatever?" And they go, "Oh yes, we got New Orleans. You want to boom?" And so I'd show up in some strange town that I'd never been to before. Spend a day sussing it out and stay in a little hotel room. Boom, next day, do a gig on the street. Invariably, someone would come up to you after the gig and say, "Oh man, fantastic! Where are you staying?" "Oh, come stay at our house." And you'd stay there for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and they'd fly you back on the same thing. I mean, and then they started charging you like 30 quid for it, but still
better than paying
up.
full price.
No, you wouldn't pay if you phone up for the cancellation because those guys had already paid. So I think I've got about 5 years of free travel with that.
Wow, that's a good tip.
I know. No, they don't do it anymore. Well, I think they do, but it's much more. Everything's so formalized now. It's like.
So let's draw it back to you doing the tumbling workshop and starting to develop an understanding. Maybe is that what was going on?
Yeah, I think I probably did that for a month before I went, okay, time to go out. And my first ever gig was with a guy who's since become quite a famous actor. He's done Arvidas in Pet, and I think his main thing is voiceover. He's got a very voice like that. I can't do it now. Chris Fairbanks. And we together put a thing together called the Maestrobani Complex. And our first gig was so pathetic. Oh, and Kim was with us as well, so it was a trio. We went onto the King's Road, and it was so shit. It was just like
why was it crap? Was it because you were just
experimenting? Yeah, we drunk a lot of whiskey too, and was doing whiteface as well. We drank a load of whiskeys, and the first audience was a dad and his 2 kids. And we were kind of just the timing, we didn't have it, and it was, but there was enough there to go, "Oh yeah, okay, no, let's do it again," but not the same day. The first one was like, "Oh yeah, but we've done it," and then spent a week going,
got a kick in the bollocks, right?
Yeah, King's Road, and then I just started branching out, doing Portobello Road, and then started working with myself, but just on my own.
And how were you developing? What were you trying? Because I know it's quite chaotic when you're working, but when you were developing the character and the limits of how far you can push and what you do to get people's attention, how did you start acquiring that knowledge?
It's just doing it.
And was there particular things where you did something you went, "Oh, that works. I'm going to work on that more"?
Yeah, but it's the same thing. I'm not that clever that I can analyze and go. Yeah, but it's just kind of a duende. You get to feel that. Yeah, you feel that works, and so you're drawn back to that kind of style and that kind of routine. And the wild, crazy character. I think I'll tell you what happened was when I decided I wanted to become the clown. I did a quick bit of research of where can you go and study, and I wrote off to Jacques Lecoq School in Paris, which was the only school I knew about or could find out that was. I think there was something in America, Ringling Brothers, and I thought, circus, no. And I got accepted, one of 80 places out of 3,000 applicants for the Lecoq School. But with the acceptance came the demand for the first year's fees, which was like 2,000 francs. I went, oh, man. And I actually did spend a month trying to get it. But in the meantime, I'd already started going to tumbling and Johnny's workshops and everything. And I'm so glad I didn't go there, because what happened, if I'd gone there, I would have studied for 3 years and done all that. Like, I can't get out, whatever they do. Instead, I developed that crazy guy there, Krista Pyss. I'll talk to you about Krista Pyss as well. Developed that crazy character, and
so you
it's
think
still in
that if you
development,
went
really.
to study with Lecoq, he would have fashioned you into something which was
Yeah.
much the same as everybody else.
Yeah, I've spoken to quite a few people, and those kind of schools are brutal. They break you down before they build you up, you know. And I was too much of an anarchist from an early age, you know, to go through that 3 years or 2 years, whatever it was. So I'm really glad I didn't go. Yeah,
Yeah, it sounds like you wouldn't have developed the character you have if you did.
don't know. I mean, I might have been more successful and finer.
Well, you wouldn't have been an interesting piece of the tapestry. You know, we would have had another clown instead of you.
Yeah.
So, when did you start realizing? Was there a point where you realized the character, not necessarily that you were being analytical of it, but you were aware that something was working, that you had something you could work around?
I think it's the ka-ching, you know. The ka-ching tells you you're doing the right thing. Ka-ching, boom, ka-ching, boom. People come and say, "Oh, come and play at my festival." You know, "Oh, ka-ching, ka-ching." You know, being, you know, outrageous in New Orleans and New York and Tokyo and Sydney, Australia, and Zurich. Oh my God, Zurich! What a gold mine, you know.
And did you have what were you doing at that time? Was it set routines? Did you have a 12-foot unicycle and juggle clubs on top of it?
No. One of the first things I learned how to do was juggle, and I learned with 3 oranges, and it took 10 minutes, and then I never really practiced. So I'd never seen anyone do eating the apple, but something I just developed, 2 balls and an apple. I quite quickly developed a 3-ball routine that was very stupid, and finished up with the apple, very messy. And finale, throw it up, the last bit, throw it up very high and catch it in my mouth. So I think it's quite a standard gag now, but I've never seen anyone do that. At one stage I did frying pan, torch brand and egg, and finished with that. So real egg, but you know, it just gets so messy when you start playing with eggs. So I've got a few routines where I use eggs, and oh God, I mean, I love it. I love mess and chaos, but cleaning up, if you're doing 10 shows a day or 6 shows a day or something, it's like,
Yeah, and it can get a bit much on a pitch if you've got 10 eggs piling up.
Yes, and costume and all that.
Yeah. And was there a focus on being creative? Was that something which was a sort of a problem in the air at the time?
No, I think it's just what young people do. If you are creative, then that's what you are, you know. And I didn't set out thinking, "Oh, I'm creative." You know, it's just I was driven by one. You know, if you could wake up in the morning and say, "I want to be a clown," it's because you want to make people laugh or, you know, feel something. So that's the drive. And it wasn't the only time stuff like that was ever analyzed. Was I worked with a great director called Ken Campbell for a while, and even he couldn't analyze me. He would go, the most peculiar style of acting. No, carry on, you know, because I'm not a standard clown. I'm not properly taught or anything, and so you know, no, I wouldn't trade anything. Well,
was there other people around at the time that you had as peers where you had to, if you watched their work, you'd have to be kind of prescient not to incorporate in? Because I definitely had that problem when I was learning, that I'd watch people who I loved, and you'd have to be actively not becoming that character when you started performing, because it would be in your head.
Dude, there was no one. I mean, Friends Roadshow didn't really work, and didn't work in this country. But when I saw them, their and Django's stuff, I suppose, was a bit inspiring. But I didn't really watch them every day. I couldn't see, you know, probably saw them 2 or 3 times a year. But it was more the doing it, you know, getting out there and doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 shows a day, and just going on. And that was the repetition. You go, oh yeah, Bing, that works, and just you know, finding a proper or an instrument. You know, I play 8 instruments, and not one of them has been I'm going to get a saxophone, or I'm going to get a sousaphone. You know, the sousaphone, I was in this crazy shop in New York. I think he's still there. Well, he was. and now he charges people to go in. But I mean, huge. It was like 2 stories high inside, and it was just packed with instruments. And right up at the top, I saw this sousaphone. I'd never seen one before, and I thought, oh man, how much is that? $125. Boom! I've got to have it. You know, so and I've got a sousaphone because I've seen this great instrument. You know,
and you were excited by it.
Yeah. Same with the sopranino saxophone. It's tiny. It's this big. It's about a foot long. It's beautiful. Absolutely fabulous. So and also small. You know, especially when that traveling with hand luggage. My whole show fitted into hand luggage.
And have you always been mixing music and clowning and a little bit of juggling here and kind of faux magic and lots of different bits together?
Yeah, yeah.
Was there a reason you didn't specialize in a way?
No, that's what clowns do, I think, without realizing it. You know, many years later, I was sort of 20 or 30 years into the business, and I realized that the real thing of clowns was they were usually older people who had been in the circus, and they'd been a trapeze artist, and they'd been a tightrope walker, and they'd been a juggler, and so they had all these things, and then they were getting older, so they could afford to drop or fall off the tightrope. But you know, they were skilled enough that they could do that. I mean, it's a bit of a generalization. I think it's possibly not true. It's just one of my harebrained theories.
Well, there seems like there might be some value to it. The idea that you could have someone playing the fool, but then have this great arsenal of talent and ability to carry the fool into the audience's, you know, heart, for want of a better term.
That's another area, you see, that I just chanced on early on, was a court jester. You know, somebody said, oh, you should come to Hatfield House. So I went, oh yeah, what goes on there? And they had medieval banquets. And oh my God, that gave you just such great liberty and great scope for just pissing about with an audience, you know, because they just sat there over a 4-course meal and you're the court jester and you've got just total, and you know, they'd have the medieval music there in between. So it was quite well orchestrated, but the court jester, you could do anything. And man, I got it down to a fine art of one instance was, it was usually foreign people, Asians and Americans mainly, bit of European. There was this guy, pink suit, very tall, well cropped hair, you know, like Hollywood kind of atmosphere about him, very like and but the first course was always pea soup, green. Anyway, as she was serving it, I bumped a waitress who bumped the waitress serving the guy, and it spilled all over his suit. I mean, it was just hilarious. All the table just collapsed in laughter because it was so funny. You know, a court jester doing that kind of stuff as the clown is, but you know,
did he
thinking about it? No, he was furious. And unfortunately, that is one of the things that I kind of, you know, I pick on children quite a lot. I'm quite well known for upsetting a child, but when it's usually for the joy of 200 people, that and I'll make the kid feel okay by the end of it usually. But yeah, I think about that sometimes. You know, it's one of those things that I'm kind of not proud of, but I don't know what could have been done to not have made that kid cry, because 200 people found whatever it was hilarious, you know. So,
and you're not being mean, right? When you make a kid cry, it's the idea is that you're doing something that's faux. It's kind of it's pretend, and the reason the kid cries is because he doesn't quite get the fact that it's an act and it's pretend, right?
Yeah, it's an act, but I'm mean. I'm a very nasty clown.
And so when you're working, do you find the clown, because this is what it seems like talking to you, the clown's channeling out of you?
Yeah, it's kind of it's that duende. It's like there. He's there with you the whole time. Ooh, okay, turn left. Whoa, okay, turn left. Yeah, okay, no, stop. Oh, look at that one. Oh, you know, a lot of my I don't do it so much anymore. That improvised following stuff, but you know, I'd sometimes do a whole show of that. just improvising with the audience and forget about routine. And then, you know, or do 20 minutes of following, messing about with the audience, and then a 15-20 minute routine, just, you know, pretty standard stuff, juggling, magic, fire eating, bye.
And did you like the following? Because the reason a lot of people, when I talk to them who enjoy doing large portions of following and crowd play, they like the fact it's different.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the same thing.
Yeah, you think that, but actually you do. There's quite a bit of, I mean, I think one of my favorite things to follow is a pigeon. I love following pigeons. They're so stupid. And, you know, I'd need some practice to get back into doing it, but, you know.
Your pigeon's a bit rusty.
Yeah. But, you know, it's exactly that. They pick up on that thing, or prams. I like following women with prams. But, so it would become kind of standard. You'd find gags that would work. And so same thing as routines, really. You find a thing that works and you hone it and develop it and everything. But then the good thing about following is you always can surprise yourself, you know.
And people can surprise you as well, I suppose.
Yeah.
You get something back that you don't expect, and then you've got a whole new thing to play with.
Mm.
So we're hitting around about mid-70s. Is that when you're really starting to develop the clown, and the show's starting to really get a sense of you in it? Is that like 75, 76, that kind of age?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think it escalated quite quickly, because 76, I was booked by Freddie Bannister to, somehow I chanced upon somebody who was booking clowns to do the Rolling Stones at Earl's Court.
Wow.
And that was like 25 clowns. And then I was one of two that got booked to do Princess Margaret threw a party for them in Sotheby's. And I was one of two.
And how did you get picked for that? What was the process of it? Did you go for an audition?
No, it was just because I stood out, you know, but you know, because I've always been like, hey, me, look at me. It's kind of person. I don't do it so much anymore. I should really. And what's it called? So yeah, oh my God, one great event at that party. So I was doing whiteface in those days, and if you're in whiteface, you can't smoke or drink. Well, I mean, it's kind of a thing you feel. Just like, no, you don't.
Why do you feel that?
It's not clown to smoke or drink. Unless it's in, I mean, not even now, I wouldn't smoke on stage except as a gag, you know. So I've got a couple of smoking gags, but I don't actually smoke a cigarette, you know. I've got one.
Haggis McLeod just asked, who was the other person that got picked for the Rolling Stones gig?
Can't remember Haggis. Oh, I'm so glad. I was going to phone you, Haggis. Hello.
So was it a wild rock and roll party? Was it what I'd imagine a rock and roll party to be?
So let me finish telling you. So I've been in whiteface. I've been improvising with people for about an hour and a half, and they're all drinking and stuff. I go, oh, man, gasping for a cigarette and a glass of wine. So I found, I don't know if you know Sotheby's, but it's lots of little rooms, really. And I suppose there were about 80 or 100 people in there or something. And Keith Richards' kids were there as well. And so I've been messing about with the kids and the old people and that stuff. So I found this empty room, and they had big round tables that had like 8 or 10 seats around them or something. So I went, cool, this is the place. Ducked under the table, which had big tablecloths over, so no one could see under. Smoked my fag, had a glass of wine, doing all that. And while I was under there, people gradually started filling up this table. So that from an empty room with 3 tables in it, suddenly this table was full of people. So, and I'm under there. So I started tying people's shoelaces, tying a lady's shawl onto the chairs. Yeah, everybody. And then I tied everybody onto something from the whole table, 7 out of the 10 people or something. And then I went, oh, and just lifted the table up a bit, just slightly. And the conversation all just stopped. And then they carried on again. And then I went, really loud, and they all jumped up and flew away. And there was just complete pandemonium. It was fantastic. Anyway, because of that gig, and Freddie Bannister, who was the promoter, producer of the Stones thing, said, can you get 200 clowns together for Nebworth? The Stones are playing at Nebworth, and it was a big gig. I mean, there was 10cc, Lynyrd Skynyrd, I mean, it was loads. It was an all-day thing. Sure, no problem. And so, I mean, I didn't know 200 clowns, but, you know, just get on the phone those days and somebody knows somebody. And I thought, we got everybody. In fact, even you might have even been there, Haggis. And with Charlie, Footspan were there, People Show. That it's just fantastic amount of people, and we had 5 stages that I had to coordinate them all on, including a bit on the main stage with Jumping Jack Flash. We had to get like 20 clowns on stage for that. So, you know, and that's in '76. I've only been doing it for 4 years, so, you know.
And how did you feel organising that time? I mean, you seemed like you were performing. You were a crazy, chaotic, anarchic character.
Oh, dude, this terrible thing happened about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because I was flitting about with everyone, and, you know, I didn't have a walkie-talkie, which some of them had. It was like I had my stages organised and who was going to be playing on what. And I went to the stage for that gig was phenomenal. It was the Lip stage. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's about 500 yards long, or 200. It was huge. So the main stage bit was the Lips bit, but it had runways that were this bit. Man, I'd love to find footage. Anyway, I wanted to just tell you, I'm sorry, I'm just gabbing on.
It's fine. This is fascinating, mate. Don't worry.
No, listen to this bit. So Freddie Bannister goes, the gig sold out anyway, so there were no tickets for sale. Now, Chris, what we got is we've got a nice little promo thing for you to do. So we've got centre court tickets for you, Wimbledon semi-final between Smith and Connors. So you can, I want you to just run on the thing. Anyway, so I won't say it twice. So me and Johnny Plummer ran on to centre. They got a front row centre court ticket. So we run on after the first set, Smith and Connors. Give them both roses. Johnny gave Smith and I gave Connors, or the other way around, I don't know. Then we go, oh, let's do some acrobatics, somersaults, backflips, da, da, da. And then we unfold this banner that says Stones Nebworth. And the commentator, oh God, I wish I could remember his name, really famous guy. He did all of them. I think he only died recently. Oh, what's happening? There's people have run on centre court. Oh, they're giving Smith and Connors roses. And now they're doing acrobatics. Oh, and now they're saying, and a banner says Stones Nebworth. I wonder what that means. Well, so we've done the thing, and then we go off. And just as we're going off, because that's quick, you know, that only takes a minute or something. So we're going off, and there's 2 bobbies just walking towards us, coming to take us away. And they took us into this little lock-up room. It's about 10 foot by 7 foot wide, high ceiling. It's just filled with beer. That was the beer store. And they locked us in there, me and Plummer. And we were there for about 40 minutes, I suppose. It took a while before we thought, oh, God, we're in shit. So, and then after about 10 minutes, we went, God, there's all this beer. Come on, what are they going to do? We're in shit anyway. So we had a couple of beers. And then they came and opened the door and took us to the entrance and said, go away, don't come back this season. But what a great gig to get, and get paid money to run onto centre court at Wimbledon. Haggis.
Haggis was saying that Bella did the catering.
Oh, for that Stones gig?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
So at this point then, you're getting some kind of industry recognition. Is that fair to say? People in the variety scene starting to know that you're a character, that you do these things, and that you can be booked for it.
Well, it's funny. This reminds. Sorry, I'm not really listening to you. I'm thinking about Haggis, because Bella and I had I think she saw me. Haggis, what year was this? The second Glastonbury? Can you remember? Do you know?
It'll take about 30 seconds. I was born in '84, so
Oh, right.
I don't think I would have been around for it.
Anyway, I went to the second ever one, and it was because Bella had seen me at Covent Garden. No, it wouldn't have been Covent Garden yet. No, she'd seen me somewhere. Because Covent Garden didn't start until mid or late 70s. I don't know.
Wow, so it's before 1980. Well, 1980 is, I can say about Covent Garden, 1980 was when the refurb was finished. So it had to be
79. Oh, my God. Okay, so I'd already been... So Bella had seen me in Covent Garden for sure. And she said, yeah, you got to come and have a look at my kids area. You'll love it. So, and that's all that there was at Glastonbury, was the children's area and the pyramid stage. And man, just these fantastic amount of people just partying and dancing. And oh my God, you can give me the program for that, yeah. And I hung out afterwards, and I became a fixture for the next 15, 18 years. And sitting around with Bella and Michael at the end, I said, man, you guys should make more of this. And, you know, you should have a theatre tent, you know, and so you've got the kids area and have a theatre area as well. Boom. And that's what they did the following year. And it's kind of grown into that.
What was it like the first year? You said that there was just the kids area and the pyramid stage. But what was the whole vibe of the place like?
Oh, my, phenomenal. I mean, I just stayed in the kids area, really. And the stage was, what are those things called?
Risers?
Forklifts. No, forklift trucks pick up. Not a packing case. What are they called? You know, the things that gets put on, stuff gets put on them and then forklifts pick it up.
A lorry.
No, the pieces of wood, slats of wood like that.
Oh, but the pallets.
Pallet, yeah. So one pallet, that was the stage. And just messed about for hours on that thing, and just and then have a break and have a beer. And then the following years, the favorite for me to go and play at was Goose Green, used to be the crew area. And man, they had, because those guys would work so hard. And then, yeah, no, Glastonbury, I'm really sorry that I got banned. I had about 18 years. Yeah.
Why did you get banned then? You can't bring that up and not describe the situation.
Do you know what? I've got this great gag, and it's called "Fuck You," and I've got a pretend. Well, it's a couple of Coke cans, gaffer tape around them, and a sparkler at the top of it. I'm fed up with this life. I've decided to end it all, like the fuse, like the spark. It looks like a fuse. And but I didn't want to die alone. You know, I mean, what's the point? Chatting about how shit everything is, and you know, you grow up, do something else, get a taxi, and then the fuse goes out. Oh. Last time I go shopping in Tokyo and throw the thing, and I've already set up a confetti cannon over where it lands, and you know, 2 beats later, boom, the thing goes off. Great gag, except. This particular year, I was in the big cabaret tent, Michael Hurst tent. Oh my God, Michael Hurst! I'm getting all these memories. I think I should write a book actually. So, in Michael Hurst's big tent, full of people, late night, being a hit, and I'd do that gag. But I hadn't brought the confetti cannon because the cannon is a metal thing about that big, and you put the charge in it and put the confetti on top of it and everything. So I'd got. Just a paper bag and put the charge in it and filled it up with confetti, and then I dangled it about, I don't know, 2 feet away from up where the queen poles go up next to the outer part of the tent. Boom, things gone off, and the show's gone like that. Oh my God, the next day, Michael Hurst is dancing and screaming and shouting because there's it's like pepper holes through on his tent for no, it's not funny. I mean,
it's not fair. Well, I'm laughing because it's 30 years after. I can see Haggis saying it was a brand new tent in the comments.
No, it wasn't brand new. But it was the wrong thing to have done. Take it away. Hold my hands up. It was the wrong thing to have done. But
so it took a few years for you to be forgiven.
18. And in fact, it's only Haggis that forgave me. Yeah,
Fair enough. And have you found in your career that you've had moments like this where you've thought, I can make this work, and it's
constant. No? I think that's what clowns do, just, you know, mess things up. And there's usually a gag in that, you know. That's why falling over is, you know, sometimes you do it as a gag, but the funniest is when, you know, you fall over by accident, you know, you fall off a ladder. Or
and are you trying to create a circumstance in shows sometimes where you're trying to invite that? You're trying to create a circumstance where that can happen, where you will fall over for real, so to speak.
Yeah. I used to for ages do a magic gag, and I wouldn't arrive with the props, but I'd go, I mean, it's a silly magic gag. So the fun would be that I have to do it on top of 10 beer crates or 3 beer crates, a chair. And so I'd build these things and try and get up onto them. And I mean, 9 times out of 10, you'd get up there and it would be all wobbly and shaky and everything. But, you know, the times that you fell, it's an even bigger laugh, you know.
Watch the fool hurt himself.
Rises. Oh my God, there's loads of comments. I haven't been reading them. So
you'll get to see them after as well if you want to look through them after the interview's done.
Yeah, but
they'll all be stored. We wouldn't miss them. So I'm interested in, you said that you worked in Covent Garden before the 79 Glastonbury.
Sorry?
So you said you worked in Covent Garden before the 79 Glastonbury. So you're working there when it's still a vegetable market? Is that correct?
No, the vegetable market had closed down early 70s, maybe 73 or 4 or something. And my first pictures that I worked in London were Portobello Road, Speaker's Corner. I used to work at Speaker's Corner a lot. That was great fun because that was always a battle with the police because there were all these rules that what you couldn't do. You couldn't collect money and you couldn't play music. So, you know, I'd do a song with my banjo, but instead of playing the banjo, I'd make the banjo sound with my mouth. Ah, chicka-lang, tung, chicka-ling, dong, ding, ding. You know, so, and the police were always standing by watching. And same with oh my God, I wish I had that photo. Someone nicked this photo that Lucy took of, because I used to finish up with blowing fire in my street shows. Still do, actually. Man, 47 years later, still blowing fucking fire. And
you still got all your teeth. That's impressive for someone for blowing fire their entire career.
Yeah. So there's this photo, and I've been doing loads of shows for Saturday and Sunday, and Speaker's Corner was a Sunday gig. And so I'm blowing fire, and my fire blowing routine is quite simple, you know, light the torch, do a bit of body burning, and then the first blow, paraffin's in a beer bottle, take us like first blow goes up, second blow is between my legs with a thing, so it looks like I've blown a fart of fire. But when you're doing that blow, every time, you know, when you blow fire, some people might not know that there's bits of this stuff don't get burnt. So my costume was 1920s bloomers with a split arse. So, you know, people get a picture of my cute little pert arse. And it's still in good nick, actually. I'm bloody 67. It's still looking like that.
You've got to look after the moneymaker.
Anyway, so this photo is about second or third show of fire eating, and blowing the fire through my legs on the second blow was the bloomers caught on fire. So the picture is me going, like that, dancing up like that, and the 2 coppers with not bobby hats, those peak cap things, going, laughing because I've got, you know, my ass is on fire, literally, you know, so the fire thing's gone and it's stuck on there. And Lucy caught this picture. I wish I still had that photo. Man, such a good picture. I'm rabbiting on a bit, aren't I?
No, you're not. This is fascinating. I'm debating whether to let you talk about this more or draw you back to the first shows in Covent Garden, which I am interested in hearing.
Okay. So, Andre, we definitely had 3 years before then, before Covent Garden Community Theatre came.
So you're looking at 74, 75 then?
Yes, I think 75 is when I went there. And it would be, I used to cycle around, and Portobello, I'd done a few shows there, and that was a great pitch, Portobello. And then I'd cycle around, and I came across this great square with builders working on it. And I went, try one. And for the first like 4 months or something, there was nobody else. So I just had to run, stop, have a fag, get a beer or something.
And was it still a road? Was the piazza still tarmacked road by this point? There was cars coming through.
No. Oh yeah, the side roads. Yeah, but the piazza itself it's always been like that.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was a tarmac road at one point. I thought there was a ring road around the place.
In fact, Andre, before they started, before Covent Garden Community Theatre did that, the first things they organised there was every year. So their first one must have been about 75 or 76, where they did a Punch and Judy festival. And that included the piazza and the church gardens place and all the streets around there. And they used to employ all kinds of people. Incubus Theatre used to come, Hidden Grin, and Maggie Pin.
Alternative Arts, Maggie Pinhorn.
Yeah. I always wanted to call her Maggie Pinhead, but it's not fair. No, they were good. They did, I'm sorry, but I didn't really like the authority thing because I've always been an anti-authoritarian, and the way it used to work was really, really good. People would show up as it got more popular, and I mean the first people that used to play there were incredible. JJ Waller, what was his name? Phil Herbert,
Sid Rasputin,
yeah,
John McKenna,
yeah.
Tim Batt as well.
Tim Batt, yeah, Pookie Snackenberger. I mean, God.
Who went on to do Stomp.
Oh no, where are they now, eh?
And so were you guys playing underneath the portico? Were you playing in the piazza?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd begin in the portico, work out into the piazza once you'd built out?
No, we'd play in front of the thing. No, we'd play the whole thing.
And was it busy there? Was there lots of people, or was it very slow, like a quiet town kind of pitch?
I wish I could remember clear, but I used to have big shows then, and so it must have been busy, maybe that was Saturday and evenings. I used to play in the evenings there. And for the evening shows, because there wasn't much light, I used to move just slightly further towards King Street because there's this beautiful light. And I had some great gags with that light. I used to, for the fire eating, I mean, you didn't need to dim the lights or anything. But I used to climb up, and it was 2 or 3 flights up the fire escape stairs, and hang my coat over the light so I could blow fire. So it would be, stupid gags like that. But
it's lovely things that I can't imagine you being able to do nowadays, which is a shame.
I know. Well, you couldn't then as well, because I did about 6 months of that, and then they go, turn off the light. So there was no light to kind of switch off.
And what was the community like at that time? You said all these great acts were working there. What were you like between each of them? Were you a family?
Really good. Yeah. It was really good. Although right in the beginning, before I met all these people, so that would have been 73, 74 when I was playing Portobello Road. And I didn't play it so often, but there was this team called the Chain Gang, and it was 2 really old blokes, and they were really ropey costumes, really quite pissed guys, and they had an escapology act, and they were proper cockneys, with lots of missing teeth and drinking special brew or some. I think they probably even had meth bottles or something. And we used to share the pitch at Portobello Road, because there was only one decent pitch to pull a crowd at Portobello, down the Antiques end. And so we used to split the pitch quite easily with them, but we weren't mates. There was no camaraderie. We didn't go and drink together or anything. I mean, I was 20-something, and they were like 45, 50, and looked like 70.
But was Covent Garden a different story then? Did you go and drink with the other performers in Covent Garden?
Yeah. No, there was because we were all the alternative people. It was, JJ Waller and there was this fantastic woman, Andre, you probably remember her. A lady used to sing opera, big lady, huge, and that was her thing. And Mac McDonald had a cardboard box, human jukebox. That's it. People used to come up and he'd have a list of the songs that he'd sing, and they'd put a penny in there, and I can't remember how they chose the song, and then he'd flip open the doors of the box and sing this song, God, I can't even remember if he had backing. I think he had backing tracks and everything, and it belted out. And I don't think anybody had electrics. I mean, maybe Pookie Snackenberger brought a little amp for the guitar or something, but it was, yeah.
And so was Covent Garden kind of known at this time for street performance?
It became popular, yeah.
Was it so? It became popular from this period. It became something that people had a public awareness of.
Yeah. No, even those early days. So it must have been, But I mean, listen, if somebody like Covent Garden, Maggie Pinhorn goes, "Oh, look, this is a great thing. They blagged an office downstairs on the corner of King Street, and this is the community theatre office, and we're regulating thing, and you have to get a license, and and we'll tell you when you can play and when so it became a bit more formal, and so people and people like myself who 1 week I'm playing in I had an international circuit kind of set up that February I'd go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, and then I'd play in New York on the way back, and in the spring fairs, and I'd play in New York again in September, and then the summer I'd play in Zurich and other European festivals, and wine. I mean, the wine festivals were phenomenal in Germany, and I didn't do the French one so much, but so it was an international circuit that you could.
So you were an itinerant performer.
Yeah,
you were moving from town to town to town. So this idea of having a structured, regulated, come in and book your slot at the start of the month kind of situation, I assume it didn't work for you.
No, we used to show up on the day and put your name down, and that's where you play. Well, the Covent Garden's like that now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Covent Garden, people go in the morning, they do the draw in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's a day, so you can just roll in.
Yeah.
And provided you've got a show, people kind of will nudge and wink you through, and you'll get in the draw no matter what, pretty much.
Oh, really? Because I thought I'd go back on the street a couple of years ago, and it was just impossible. It's the same with Edinburgh. I tried playing there, and 7 times out of 10 you don't get a show, because there's too many people. I mean, it kind of takes the joy out of it, if you're coming out to play and somebody's saying, "Oh no, you can't." So I think the intention is to get back on the street this year with all this misery that's going on, because I can't see any gigs showing up.
Well, that's great. We chatted in the last interview. I'll be more than happy to help in any way I can, if I can.
Cool.
Being someone with feet on the ground, right now. But we'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
So what happened with you when they brought in this regulation? Did it change your way you interacted with Covent Garden?
No, not really. No, I still kept going there, but it just meant, and actually, because we never used to play in what's it called, the North Hall. I mean, that we didn't do that. I think actually it was a great magician guy, Mike Mulcairn. He used to do a double act with somebody. And Alex Dandridge. Oh, they were later, I think. They weren't early boys. But a couple of the magicians used to go and do small shows in that North Piazza stuff. But I never really enjoyed that.
So it was available. It just wasn't used.
Yeah, and then those guys started regulating that as a pitch. Yeah.
Well, I find for that indoor pitch, because I play quite an acerbic in-your-face character, not as much as you, but still there. And I can't work that indoor pitch at all because I'm too close to the people, and it feels like they're laughing at me, but they're leaving because they're uncomfortable or scared. Whereas on the West Piazza, it feels like they've got enough room and space to watch me from a distance and feel safe and comfortable that they're not going to be picked on.
Yeah. No, it's a good place, that Covent Garden. It's kind of like. Well, not really school, but I did grow up there. My clown really developed there. There was a photographer, Bill. Oh God, he might not be around anymore because he was quite old then. But man, his pictures were so great. If anybody out there knows how to find Bill, his family.
So, when did you start coming to the point of moving away from Covent Garden then? Because you did spend your entire career there, obviously.
Yeah, no, it's that whole thing. Like, Bella. In fact, now I remember Bella seeing me there. She saw me at a Punch and Judy festival. She'd come up from Glastonbury for the Punch and Judy Festival, and we had a long chat outside a pub, and she said, "Oh, come to Glastonbury, come to the children's area." So it was things like that. Come to my fest, people see you on the street and go, "Ah, come to the thing," and then, of course, the two things: the money thing gets, because I used to earn good money on the street. I was kind of the top earner around the world. Actually, I used to earn good money, and so if people want you to come to a festival, they'd have to match that. And so quite quickly, I'd go, "Oh, give us more money." Otherwise, there's no point. If they say, "Oh, come to our festival in Hoboken or something, or Flomdysdorp in Germany for 200 quid," you go, and it's to do one show or something. I'd rather go and do. And there still are some great festivals where you can go and play 2, 3, 4, 5 shows, and they'll pay you a fee, and
you can have on top of that.
Yeah. What kind of irks me a bit, and it's been happening a lot in the last 20 years, really, is people go, "Okay, we'll pay your travel to come to our festival, but it's a good hat." This kind of thing infuriates me, because it kind of just doesn't show the respect of you being an artist. It's got,
what happens if it rains?
People will pay. Yeah, exactly that. Then it's like, oh, tough titties, really.
Yeah. And so were you starting to command these higher fees then? Did you start to get a level of status that you could say, "No, you have to pay me this," and start working this circuit for what is, replacing the street kind of level of income?
Yeah, there was that, but there was also because I was a hippie at heart and an anarchist as well. There would be festivals that didn't have a lot of money in extraordinary places, like Spruga at the end of Valensonone in Switzerland, where we've got a 4-day festival, we've got no money. Well, we can pay you man. But the first time you go there, if you ever go to, it's not a running festival anymore, but about 4 or 5 years of absolute bliss, the most idyllic place in the world. So things like that, you're not going there for the money, you're going there because of the heart and soul. And
but the thing I'm trying to get to is, how did your career begin to change? It seems like in the early 80s your career changes and it becomes something it wasn't in the earlier time. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, because also the comedy store thing started. The comic strip was the first thing, and so I came off. I heard about that stuff and went into the first ones when it was in Raymond's Review Bar. And
what is the comedy strip? Because I know it from the Channel 4 the Channel 4 comedy series.
Yeah, the comedy store before it was the first thing. It was, I think it was the comic strip or something like that, and it was in the room above the Raymond's Review Bar thing.
And was it like an alternative comedy night?
Yeah, and it was the Aid Edmondson, Rick Mail, what's the northern guy called, Alexei Sale, and later on the girls, Dawn and
French and Saunders.
Yeah. And so and I went in there and did a couple of those shows, but because I was coming off the street and was more visual, they didn't get it, because those guys were all doing kind of stand-up and kind of sketchy stuff, but more, there was no one doing juggling or that kind of visual stuff, and blowing fire in there. They were going, shit, and doing that kind of mad shit that I do was a bit too much for them. So, I got in, but then when but it wasn't long, but about a year later, they got that place down in the basement in Leicester Square, and I was a regular there with Kim Kinney used to book me. Well, I'd play 2 or 3 times a month.
And what was the whole scene like? What was the clientele, and what was the atmosphere like between all of you guys?
Oh, it was good. Yeah, no, it was really good atmosphere, good people. Quite quickly, those guys, Aid Edmondson and all that lot, moved out of it quite quickly, and it got replaced by I can't remember who were the early guys, but Ronnie Golden was one of the early ones, and some of the people came off the street and transferred into those kind of gigs. But and the variety bills were a lot more. The bills were a lot more variety in those early days. You get a poet, and Steve Rawlins, I think, was one of the early ones, and you get someone doing music and parodies and stuff. Ronnie Golden and women as well, women poets.
It seems strange because now you look at comedy and it's all some guy standing in front of a mic talking about, what he said to his therapist or his wife the other week. It seems strange that it moved. Did it move in that time, the time that you were working there? No. Did the transition happen?
Well, yeah, I suppose it did in a way. Yeah, but once Jongleurs, because Jongleurs was one of the early gigs and was a lovely gig, that Battersea Jongleurs, and it was when Maria was running it. It had so much life and light to it, and she'd finished the night with, Tony and Stodd with a double act music, and they'd sometimes have Bernie would come on and drum, and I'd sometimes play and banjo with them and sing a couple of songs, and it was a lot more fluid, and people it was a lot more. And then they went, oh, let's expand, and then her husband took over. What was his name? The guys took over running Jongleurs. Dave, was it? Anyway, he was an accountant, really, I think, is what his main was. But
he could do books.
He saw the ka-chink because people were loving this stuff. Those shows were great. Those shows would last 3 or 4 hours or something, and there'd be a dance disco afterwards. And Nights at the Tunnel Club. I can't remember when the Tunnel was on, but yeah.
John Davey is the name from Andre Vincent there.
Oh yeah, John Davey. Andre's a minefield. Look, he knows all about Comedy Store First, comic strip. Broke off because Don wouldn't pay. Oh yeah, yeah, because Don was a strip club bloke, wasn't he? Andre, I think he was. That was his money.
And so he was tight-fisted and didn't pay the acts.
No, I think this was. Oh yeah, probably. Yeah, probably.
So how did doing this stuff change your career then? Because you've done a lot of big stage work, and you did TV work towards this time, if I'm right, and you won some awards this time.
Funny enough, that track that you played at the beginning was that I used to have a 10-piece band called the Extravaganzas, and that was so much fun. And we were starting to get in the late 80s. We were getting gigs all over Europe and all over England and playing nice big stages. And the thing about the Extravaganzas was there was no such thing as upstaging. So there was little stories going on between the horn section and the drummer, and there was just fantastic stuff. So Paul Jackson gave us 6.5 hours because Noel Gay was spending a lot of money on this new satellite that had been launched called a new channel, BSB. So they were just chucking money at everyone. I mean, really good stuff. Keith Allen did, I think 20 programs or something and that really good political kind of people thinking they were being properly interviewed and find out that it's some comic just taking the piss out of them and stuff.
So it was like a precursor to the Chris Morris stuff in the 90s.
Yeah. And anyway, 2 weeks before we were due to shoot the first, we had it booked up to do, and I fought to film at the Hackney Empire because I loved that. I loved what happened at Hackney Empire. I was one of the early people going in there as well. And because Roland and Claire used to run, what was it called? Variety Night Cast. And so 2 weeks before the first filming, I had this hit and run where I got smashed off my bicycle and got hit at midnight after a long 2-day session with Ken Campbell writing for this bloody program that we were making, and cycling home midnight. I left Covent Garden at midnight, and I got found at 4:30 in the morning down a hole on the New Kent Road, and this tooth had gone through. That top lip was split open completely. Bottom teeth through this lip, broken jaw, grazes and things. When the producer came in and saw me in hospital, my face was like Desperate Dan. I've got a photo of it actually. It was just big, like I couldn't talk. So I had to write everything. What's happened? Anyway, filming got delayed for a month, and then we came back and filmed it. But you know, my hair, that I can see there was a boy band that had that hairstyle in the 90s, late 90s or something. What were they called? Two Brothers or something.
Jedward.
Yeah, them.
Yes, they nicked your hair.
Yeah, but that wasn't my hair. That was done for television. That was because I was kind of drugged up on morphine you know, I was in a terrible state. And I had a lump on my lip, and the one tooth they couldn't replace because they had to take a tooth out because it was on the above the broken jaw, and the jaw would never heal. So I was a bit of a mess. And so the whole 6.5 hours mostly looked shit, you know. But I mean, there's a bit of stuff on my YouTube channel and that, I mean, the music was fantastic. I mean, scored by Steve Rose, great piano player, great composer as well, actually. So yeah.
And did you see that as something that you really would have liked to have put more work into, creating these big stage extravaganzas?
Yeah, that band was really special. Yeah, I would like to, but you know, that was suddenly, if you're not a pretty boy, and not only that, I'd gone through some kind of management problems with, you know, those early days of once it got established that, you know, comedy happened the same as the street. You know, suddenly people see, oh, look, there's all this kind of stuff. People are flocking in there. You get the Avalons enough off the curbs coming in and going, oh, okay, no, we're controlling this whole thing. So yeah, I kind of got pushed to the side a bit with all of that. And man, I struggle to get gigs now indoors. I can't work in England very much. It's, you know, if you're not one of those young newbies, or I don't know how they're getting it, how they're getting staged, and a lot of them are getting stage time from just doing freebies and
open mics. It seemed to me, I looked at it recently, I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a go, think about it, and it looks like there's an entire industry built around people who want to be comedians. And so you'll go to a night, the comedians will bring people to the night, they'll pay donations at the end of the night, that goes to the promoter who organizes the night. None of the acts usually get paid in these events, and there's hundreds of them everywhere. They've kind of replaced everything but the top flight comedy gigs.
Still, I'll be dead soon, thank fuck.
So you won an award in the 80s. Am I right in thinking this? Was it Best New Comedian?
Oh, that was funny. Edinburgh. Yeah, it was Best something or other. It was hilarious because, okay, remind me about this. I'm going to first tell you about Chris de Pyss. So in the mid 80s, there was maybe early 80s, I don't know. There was an actor called Chris Langham, and I mean, he's kind of around. I think he's had a bit of a strange cycle with it all as well. But he's more of an actor, a comic actor is what he is. But he was getting, it was more mainstream. It definitely wasn't street performer. And we were getting confused bookings because I was working as Chris Lynam. And so I just went, I'll call myself Chris de Pyss. And so I liked that name a lot, and it kind of suited the character. Excuse me. So, blah blah going on, and then, God, I wish I could remember what the title was. But it was at the Gilder Balloon, the presentation of this award. It was best comic.
I think it was Best New Comic, if I remember correctly.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Anyway, and it was Alloa Breweries were the promoters, the sponsors of it, yeah. And so they got wind of who was going to, and the judges were amazing people. It was Loudon Wainwright III and a female playwright, Italian female playwright, I forget her name. And the promoters, the Alloa Breweries people came running to the backstage before they announced it, because, you know, there was a bit of filler and we've had the thing, and the judges were looked at, and we all did 10 minutes or something, and before they announced it, they came and begged me to change my name to be Chris Lynam, and because it wasn't going to look good for them to promote the winner of the Alloa Breweries new comic of the year. Yeah, I think that was it. Aloha Brewery's new comic of the year prize has gone to Chris the Pyss, you know, and because part of the prize was good. It was like $1,000 and 3 months' work in their breweries all over Scotland. So and each night was paid. I don't know, a few hundred quid or something, whatever. And I went, no, you know, anarchist me. I mean, that's where I keep shooting myself in the foot, because sensible me would have gone, sure, no problem. Do the 3 months, and that was the next stage, and then you get all the nice management and everything. But I don't think clearly, mate. You know, so many times I've made the bloody wrong mistake. So management, same thing happened in Just for Laughs. You know,
and that's the big Canadian festival, right?
Yeah, I'd spent ages trying to get there, and ages, like 5 years, and I knew the guys quite well, and they were all kind of worried and everything. And then I got Avalon as my management, and
Avalon are a very big management company, right?
Yeah,
they got a lion's share.
Yeah, it's them and Off the Curb run the whole thing, really. Well, and I think there's more people got a piece of the pie now, but they're still the main ones. They do lots of television and stuff. But in those days, they didn't have anyone really. They had Jerry Sadowitz, me, and Badil and
Skinner.
Yeah. I think that was it, really. But and so then I got and I was doing Sellout Show in Edinburgh, and the Just for Laughs people were there, Andy and Bruce, and I got the gig from them. They saw me afterwards, and we were hanging out in the Guild of Berlin and say, yeah, no, you can come next year for sure. So 5 meetings I set up with Avalon to come and talk to them about it, and they didn't show up to each one. And when we got back to London, I just went, guys, you can't treat me like this. Fuck that. You can't be my millionaire. And John Thode begged me, no, please don't, give us another try. And I said, no, fuck you, man. You know, this is a big gig, the Just for Laughs festival. It means American market and all that. No, fuck you. I don't know. Oh, dude, how many times have I gone back to them saying, oh, look, really? Yeah. And in fact, that was late 80s as well. And it led to me going, do you know what? Fuck this. And I took 4 years off. I bought a piece of rainforest in Zimbabwe, and I just went. And it was all about that, really. That was getting harder and harder to get gigs if you didn't have that kind of management. And, you know, so.
Did you feel like the scene had evolved, and it had evolved to work out people who were quite anarchic, to basically just push them out? I say it's the people with the right coloured pens get the work.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be that. I mean, but I think I might be. I don't know if anyone else has done 4 Just for Laughs on the trot, but I did that next year, and the next 4 I did, and so it was a bit of a thing. And then still, that was the reason I brought that subject up, shooting myself in the foot. So I used to love going to New York, and Caroline's is a kind of comedy club there. It's one of the more renowned comedy clubs in America, but it's in New York, and it's a great club. It's really kind of got a cleaned up version of the Tunnel, really, is what it is. But, you know, nice, great crowds, great shows. And I just loved those people. And so we'd already had a few chats, and yes, you're going to manage me, you guys. Okay. So they've done a couple of tellies and brought me back. And that was about the 4th or 5th year I was doing Just for Laughs, and they were my management. And then this woman came up. She was English, White. Her surname's White. Patricia White, Lucy. Anyway, she was Kim Kinnison's manager as well. And she said, she brought me up, and she was serious, and she was straight. You know, it wasn't like a fun conversation. It was business, you know, and that's what Just for Laughs is about, business. You know, you meet people at 7 o'clock in the morning to talk over breakfast, and this is business. And we wonder, we'd like to manage you, and you know, we can see that for America. And I was thinking, and she's LA based, and I don't know if you've been to. I hate that city so much. It's just like soulless. You know, it's just got. But, you know, for the business, and that was exactly what did I do? I chose, no, I'm going to be managed by these people who just run one seedy little club and got a few little television shows. And, you know, if I'd gone with her, that's the thing with my career. There's loads of, if I'd only not blown up my cursed tent, I could have played the next 18 years of Glastonbury and been the, you know, to have played the second one in the next 18 and then get banned. Fuck that, man. It's a real drag.
You said you went away to Zanzibar. Zimbabwe, sorry. You said you bought land and went there.
I bought land earlier.
What did you do there for 4 years?
Well, I had this piece of rainforest that I bought, a big piece, 1,500 hectares, right on the Mozambique border. And it's the most remote, most beautiful place I've ever been to, really. End of the road. And but on this land there was somebody had settled there. One of the fur trekkers had come there on wagon trains so there was ruins of a stone house with 1906 on the stone, which was very early for Zimbabwe to have, you know, white people didn't go there then. And in fact, when I bought that piece of land, white people, you know, the nearest village was 60 miles away, and that took 2 hours to drive because it's dirt roads. And if it was raining, it's taken me 2 days to get there before.
Did you buy it alone?
Yeah. And but there was so that early settler had planted eucalyptus on it, which wasn't indigenous, and so it was always my plan to restore the rainforest to its you know, pristine. Oh, dude, there's a 1,000-foot drop of water on it. One of the waterfalls was 200 foot, and when I first started going there, probably only ever in its whole existence 500 people. It was impossible to get to. I mean, people just didn't know where it was. You know, so. And
so did you live in the woods there? Or did you live like a wild man kind of existence?
Yeah, wild man. So I'd been going for a while, and then, you know, living in a tent, and then I started building a log cabin. And funny enough, Christopher Richardson, who was he was the Pleasance guy, Edinburgh Pleasance, and he was actually an architect in Covent Garden, and he drew me this fantastic plan. I've still got it actually of. Christopher, I want to build this little log cabin there. Great. It's on a bit of a slope, but the place I want. And he drew me this picture. And then I had this idea that I wanted to have a thatched roof. And I thought, when I got to putting the roof trees, the sides up, I went, I'll just go another meter up. And then I could, rather than just being a ground floor thing, I'll have just a room upstairs or something. Cool. And I wanted to put thatch on it, thatched roof. And so when it got to that stage, I did the measurements, and dude, it was really hard because you have to have a minimum pitch of 47 degrees on thatch. And so I did the sums, and this thing was huge because it was like 30 feet square, and 30 feet, 10 meters, yeah. 5-story log cabin I built. No.
And is it still there to this day?
No. And so the reason I went there was I had it with comedy. I'm going to restore my rainforest. So I kind of took a bit of time and I bought a sawmill, and I got rid of all the eucalyptus. Sort of. Grows back.
Did you feel a sense of achievement at that time though? Was that like
it was so
demons were kind of
it was really exhilarating. And actually it was such an extraordinary place that I thought I want to get my friends out here. So I started a festival in the little village in 96 was the first one. Yeah, 96 or 97. Yeah, one of those. And me and a mate, Simon Rosie, had put got $2.5 grand together, and we just rented a PA system and paid for some top musicians in the country. And I did a couple of turns, and we got a couple of dance companies and stuff. And we had a 2-day festival. It was great. And then it carried on. And the next year we got funding for it from Kellogg's, and it ran for about 5 or 6 years. I handed it over after 3 years. Oh, it's hard work, man. And dealing with committees and co-ops. Jesus.
How did you handle that? With it seems like your character doesn't naturally lend itself to organizing and working with large groups of people.
No, I can. It's just tedious, and difficult if you're living. And by the time I handed it over in 2000, Kate said, time to come home. So I came back to England, and unfortunately, when I left, I'd done the whole "I hate you, cunts" to all the management people I knew and all the bookers and things. Yeah,
burnt it. So what was it like coming back?
It's been tough ever since, mate. Really trying to,
Did people keep their doors closed to you?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
So how did you, when you got back, how did you think about starting it back off and working it? What was the way you tried to deal with that?
I mean, there were still some festivals that I've done, and the most fun I've had in the last 20 years is with it's probably 2015 we started Eric the Fred, which have you seen photos of that? It's the best thing I've ever done. I love it to bits, but really hard to sell. It's a complicated show. It's
the first question is, why do you love it so much? Why is it your favorite thing you've done?
I suppose it's kind of, I don't know, it's really poetic. It's really poetic and it's really beautiful. And it's gone back to whiteface and it's silent. The premise for putting it together was I wasn't getting gigs, and the wild character, the world, the market has gone very safe, very sure. So promoters and bookers, audiences love the wild, crazy shit and squirting fire extinguishers at everyone, but the bookers and the promoters are terrified of being sued or what might happen if, and because it looks like it's out of control. Chris Lynam looks out of control, but actually I'm in control. And
so you designed the new show to combat this in some way.
Three of us sat down, and because I've been working with Slava Snow Show quite a lot over the last 10, 12 years or something, and that's hugely successful. And it's kind of, well, put it this way, I did a sketch in Hackney Empire as part of that 6.5 hours where was a tramp coming out on the stage at Christmas time, Christmas music playing, goes in a bin, gets a paper out, there's a bit of wine left in there, a couple of half-chewed things, chicken legs, has a bite of them, gentle snow starts, and the snow gets more and more, so he gets a newspaper and covers himself up, and the snow gets more and more and more, and I filled Hackney Empire with snow. Wow. About 2 weeks or 2 months, I don't know, some short time afterwards, because I was mates with Slava. I've known him for years. Chris, where can find Machine Wind? So he'd either seen or been told about that sketch, and because Roland loved him. I think Roland brought Lycidae to Hackney Empire in the early days, which was Slava's early group from St. Petersburg. And so anyway, Slava Snow Show was born.
And so you say you worked with him with your new show, you didn't, so you weren't working to develop the new show.
No, I've worked with Slava and seen that that's a successful show, and it's kind of silent and So Eric the Fred, we kind of tried to get a bit. The first time I've ever done this, actually, gone, okay, let's try and devise a show that's going to be successful. So I've never done that before. I've always gone, hey, let's do this idea. Boom, hey, let's get a band together. It's a 10-piece crazy band. So it's always been organic, but this was contrived, and I think it's really beautiful. And it hasn't been seen a lot, but it starts off with the crazy guy, but only after 5 minutes I rip it all off, and it's silent. The music composed by Kevin Sargent is just phenomenal. I mean, it's just fantastic.
What was the experience of developing? Because it seems like this was completely, well, you said yourself, it's a completely different way of developing a piece of work to what you've done your entire career.
Okay, the way it worked was we devised the idea, and then I started playing at Emma and Ron used to run a thing called East Dulwich Comedy at the Hob in Forest Hill. And so I just said, okay, look, I want to develop an idea. And I booked sort of a night on my own there once every couple of months. And I'd tag 5 minutes of this bald character, which I'd get bald and put the makeup on stage with at the end of a 45, 50-minute show. And when we had 10 minutes, I called Joseph Selig, who runs the London Mime Festival, and they hate Chris Lynam, mad anarchic thing. That is like, But we'd met at quite a few festivals, and he's very approachable, and Helen. And so I went in and said, look, I've got this new thing. I think it would work for the London Mime Festival. So he came and saw when it was 10 minutes. He said, oh, I love that. I'll buy that. If you can give me an hour of that, I'll buy it. So beavered away, and we got the first 10 minutes of I don't know if you know my ballerina sketch, which is magician goes into brown paper bag and bursts out as a ballerina. So I got him in and did that 10 minutes at the beginning, and then did 40 minutes, not 35 or something, of Eric the Fred, which was all kind of poetic and and he said, if we can't have Chris Lynam. So if you can give me an hour of Eric the Fred. So anyway, we did that. Silent, no talking, didn't get anyone out the audience, didn't touch anyone. And he booked it for the London Mime Festival the next year. And so that's how it got born. And while we were building it, we got Kevin Sargent on to compose the music for it. And he's such a phenomenal character. In fact, I think, what I might try and... I've got footage of one of the last shows we did in Genoa. I might just put it up there for people to see, because it's not like it's been shot for television or anything. So it wouldn't translate as a thing, but for people to see what this show is.
Well, when you do put it on, I'll happily put it in the chats and the info link into the video, so people who watch this can check back later and find that.
Okay.
Did you enjoy doing the more artistic, silent mime character? Do you take as much from it as doing the chaotic, anarchic?
It's a lot more challenging to be silent, because because I'm not trained. So being a mime doesn't come easy, and being a dancer. But no, it was really satisfying to. I work with butterflies. It's fantastic.
And what were some of the things you had to do to kind of overcome those challenges of working a lifetime with words, and to just kind of lift that out of the work and do something completely without it?
Well, that was part of the whole premise, and challenging. Yeah, I don't know if that. Yeah, I suppose it is. But we had like 3 ideas at the beginning. Lose the hair, and don't talk, because that makes it more international. I work internationally with English, but I also work with whatever language of the country I'm in. The difficult ones are Russian and Japanese, where my ear doesn't. It's because there's so many gags to be had with the German and the French and the Italian and the Spanish and the Portuguese, with nearly getting it right, and you can always make a gag with nearly getting it right, or something that sounds a bit like a naughty word in their language. That, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of fun to be had with playing with the language, but no language. Oh man, that's really interesting. Not only that, we said, okay, because I like attacking people and jumping on them and everything, we went, boom, there's a gauze between me, because I work with film in Eric the Fred as well. So we project onto a screen from the back. So it's back projection onto a screen, and I play with the character, sometimes play with myself. So it's very surreal. It's very dreamlike and very it's kind of slow. Yeah, it's not fast at all. The initial premise was this is something for me to get old into doing. Unfortunately, we wrote just a couple of scenes in it. Well, they kind of just materialized, you know. I mean, the hanging scene, it's just ridiculous. It's hilarious. You know, jumping off a table with a noose around my neck, bouncing back onto it.
And these things you say are physical things that might be more difficult as you get older. You've kind of written in stuff that's going to challenge you.
Yeah. Well, it just means that I have to, you know, I can't grow old gracefully, you know.
Did you work with a choreographer to do it? Did you have a team of people working with you to, you know, help you see your blind spots, so to speak?
Yeah. I worked with, well, there's the three of us that are quite critical, the devisers, and the musician Kevin Sargent, who works with television and film quite a lot. And then I worked with a man called John Crikey. What's his name? He's Trestle Theatre. What's his John? God, the memory's gone. Hang on.
I have to say, it's now where you checked. I saw Chris work about 10 years ago with a group called Mattress Circus in Covent Garden. And when I saw him work, he was the most incredible, electric thing to watch.
John Wright. We worked with John Wright for a bit. He's as a director, but he's not really a director. He's more of a facilitator, really. So and that's the way the whole piece has developed. So it's been kind of facilitated, and it feels quite whole now as a piece. And I'd love the opportunity to play it again. Again, really hard to sell because it's a one-man show, so people think, oh, it's just one bloke coming on. Unfortunately, there's 5 technicians with it because it's quite tech heavy, and it's quite tech demanding as well because I fly, so it needs a minimum of 8 meters height for the thing. So, but I still feel that these are surmountable challenges. Really, you know, at the end of the day, Matt, what makes a show work is the bloke selling it. It doesn't matter about the show, really. It's, you know, Slava Snow Show is only popular because of Gunnell, really. Well, it's a good show, but, you know, there's millions of good shows. I've done about 3 really good shows that the only life they had was a week in Edinburgh or a month long in Edinburgh, and then it dies, you know, because you haven't got the bloke selling it.
And is this the challenge then? So the challenge isn't just creating a good piece of work, but it's being able to get that piece of work into theatres and into venues. Yeah.
And that's kind of been the challenge since I came off the street, really. Well, the first few years were fine because you're getting invited to festivals and people are saying, oh, come and play at my theatre. And so you're getting invites. But as the business has become more of a business, if you aren't a businessman or you haven't got a businessman selling you, then you're just some other bloke trying to sell fish and chips, really. Do you know what I mean? Without a shop.
And so you said now you're thinking about coming back on the street. Is this because you've kind of put to bed the idea of working on this Eric the Fred show? You kind of said this is a great piece of work. If it comes back, it can, but my future's somewhere else.
It's kind of, I don't know. It's kind of, listen, the happiest and wealthiest period of my life was the street in my memory, you know. So 73 I started, so it's a 47-year career, and 15 years on the street was piles of money, piles of fun, traveling like mad, you know. And then when you start going indoors, then you have to, oh no, you can only do 8 minutes. Oh no, the lights need to be like that. Oh no, you have to be here. No, oh, you know, it's all this kind of stuff that you have to deal with. And oh no, you can't say that on television. And so I'm not as strong as I used to be in terms of agility and acrobatics and everything. And I'm a multi-instrumentalist, so I've always incorporated a bit of music in the shows, and so I'd like to just explore that more. So the idea is to have a trio. I found a great little, she is little, a great accordion player, and I'd like to find one other musician and just put a trio together and just see what happens with just taking it out there and you know, just get back to the street used to work because you had a good show. And I think there is still place for that, you know, where it's probably not going to Covent Garden and queuing up and getting one show a day. But, you know, when I was a successful street performer, I'd do between 3 and 10 shows a day. So there's still people walking about, and I think there's still that possibility, and I'd like to explore that. Really is what I'm hoping for the spring.
Well, that sounds like a really interesting thing, and something that I've seen in performance now, which doesn't seem to have been there in the era where you were really, you know, learning and developing and growing, is the fact that people cross mediums. You get musicians working with clowns, working with jugglers, working with people, all were melting together. And it seems like now everyone's picked their discipline and we don't cross over very much.
No, yeah.
Do you think that it's do you think it's better now for that, or do you think it's I suspect the answer, but I want to hear it. Do you think it's better now, or do you think it's better before when everyone was mixing together?
No, it was mixing together is much better. Yeah, the entertainment world has really, I mean, it was called alternative comedy, you know, in the early days, and street performing was a thing that, I don't know, it was a kind of organic thing that just grew, you know. Suddenly there were, it wasn't suddenly, but over the space of 1 or 2 years, you know, these extraordinary artists just came out. And I don't know what inspired them, you know. What inspires J.J. Waller to put on a leopard skin costume, being a skinny little guy, and do a strongman act, or Mac McDonald putting on, you know, a funny hat but being in a cardboard box doing the human jukebox, or, you know.
Is there any advice you'd give to new performers, to particularly with creative practice at mind for the street?
Ooh, you just got to follow your heart, really, you know. And what would be great would be to see. Do you know what? There's so many street. I mean, never been a great watcher of other artists since it became a unicycle, chainsaw juggling. Got to get hired. Start talking about money 10 minutes into the whole. You know, that whole thing just. But I understand that it becomes a routine and a formula that people have learned. You know, there's so many performers that I've seen that I think you do yourself and the audience damage by it's kind of belittling your art, really, to do things like that. You know, it becomes a psychological thing rather than an entertainment thing. You know, and that kind of, it bothers me. I'd like to be able to watch performers again. There's a few, like Anthony Livingspace. I can watch him because you know that you're going to get something fresh, and it's not kind of, you know.
There's content.
Yeah,
there's content.
If there's a unicycle, it's probably because he's going to tie a child to it and push him in the bloody lake. Or I don't know. You know, it's not. Yeah, it's not premeditated and predictable. You know, I'd like to. I love seeing stuff that's not predictable. You know.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll see more of that stuff. What do you think about the licensing in Westminster? Have you heard about what's going on at the moment in Westminster?
Listen, I got asked to, and I'm really sorry that I haven't supported it. I don't know what the outcome is, but I just. Have they got it? Are they?
It's all been passed through the council. They've approved it. They've ratified it. It will be coming into power in April. So we are now developing campaigns to fight it in April, and to fight it with court cases, with judicial reviews, and with public opinion. So the battle isn't over, but they've definitely done all their paperwork to put it into place now, and it will begin in April.
And oh God, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't go to the hearings and everything, but I'm very surprised that, because there was a big fight a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago or something, where they were trying to regulate it and trying to close Covent Garden down. And I think it was Mark Rothman was quite instrumental in fighting that and getting that the street performers won that.
Yes, we very much did in the end.
Revoked, is it?
Well, what's happened is the situation I had before was Covent Garden were trying to license the whole area themselves, and then they were just going to have festival bookings there. So, you know, beautiful statues going like this, you know, and get rid of all the street performers. So Mark Rothman went there, and he went with Andy Christie, and they basically stood up in the meeting where they were about to pass it and say, we would like to be licensees as well. We'd like to go on the license with Capco and be joint licensees. And the Capco solicitor lost his shit in the committee meeting, swore at members of the council, stormed out, and the council signed off and ratified it that we'd be co-signees on this license. So the square was licensed, and the performers were part of the licensee to run that square. What's happening now is that the Westminster Council is now going to make it a criminal offence for most of the borough for you to entertain on the street. It's going to be a criminal offence to do anything that's entertaining on the street if you don't have a licence. You have to apply to them. They'll write off, sign a licence for you. Most of the pitches are unamped. Most of the areas are not pitches, so you can't work them, no pop-ups. It'll be an interesting time for you to come back and work again, I'll be honest. Yeah,
no, I'd be up for it. I mean, I can't see myself being as wild and unruly as I was. And to tell you, I mean, there'll always be a little glint of some madness coming out of me. But do you know what? In the 70s, when I was playing in Zurich, there was this group from Denmark called Typhoon Tivoli. And I don't think any artist has ever struck me as much as them. It was just a trio and acoustic and just playing fantastic music, and they'd get audiences dancing and they'd do sing-alongs and stuff, and it was just so vibrant. And I'd just love to do something like that. It was, you know, maybe not as edgy as Chris the Pyss, you know, but just to finish off the Pyss story. So Chris Langham then kind of disappeared. He went off to LA, and he was a writer on the Muppet Show and stuff like that. And so he was kind of gone. And my television series was coming out, was a possibility. And there were quite a few other gigs. And the Pyss thing was kind of upsetting a few of the more, you know, because I was moving into that world. So I went back to Chris Langham. And then bloody Chris Langham came back to the UK, and we started getting confused bookings again, because he also worked quite a lot with Ken Campbell, who I became very friendly with, and he directed me. I've worked on quite a few of his shows and everything, and I just went, oh bollocks, I can't be bothered. And then he got in trouble for stuff found on his computer and everything, and his name was all turned sour again, and I was going, oh no, and I got a bit of it, not as much as the first time, like, oh, see, Chris Lynam, is he that paedophile? So I don't know, I despair. But yeah,
so Chris, we've been here for an hour and 58 minutes. We're reaching the end of the interview now. It's been a real pleasure talking. Really has, and we can talk again at some point. But there's a lot of what I'd like to think of some of your family that have been listening through the interview, a lot of old friends. Is there anything you'd like to say to everybody?
Thank you so much, you guys. And Andre, well done for being such a minefield of information about who was doing what and when. Because he started playing, oh my God. I still think, Andre, you'd be a great trumpet. Did you ever see Nuts and Bolts?
No.
It was a comic troupe. They worked more theatre kind of stuff and Talk of the Town, those kind of places, and probably working man's clubs. But their smallest guy was 3'8" or something, and the biggest guy was 6'9", and he was huge. Wow,
huge.
But he was really fit, and he used to be the trumpet. So they do acrobatic. They had one routine where they.
Oh, was that Mattress? Did they work under the name Mattress Circus? You worked with them in Covent Garden.
Yeah. No, I worked with Mattress, but they didn't.
Love these guys.
These Nuts and Bolts had a human trumpet. So the big fat guy was who bounced. So they'd run up and jump on his stomach and
Wow.
he would go boom like that, and double somersaults off him and everything. It's phenomenal.
Wow,
But
it's amazing.
I think Andre could do that. He's probably gone now, hasn't
I'll make sure he knows your advice.
he?
So Chris, closing thoughts.
It's great when the sun shines.
It is, and may the sun shine us again on a street where we can make people happy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Matt.
My pleasure. Thank you for being here. And everybody else who's been watching, thank you for watching. Once again, if you haven't liked yet, please like the video. If you want to comment, let Chris know. He can check later. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, click the bell. If you're on Facebook, join Whining On with Public Performers. If you can afford to go to the Patreon, the show does still cost me a debt of about £20 to run in the month. We've covered a lot of the costs this month. If you can put in even a couple of quid into there, it'd be an amazing help. Everybody, for now, thank you for watching again. Check us out next week. I'm going to put who's on next week tomorrow. It's a great lineup, so I think you'll be pleased. For now, everybody,